in general. And I literally, like, I went down a small rabbit hole. I haven't quite fallen all the way down, but it was really good. I have not really touched into Thai stuff in general. Thai GLs in particular, because that's kind of the rabbit hole I've been going down. So the first drama I watched is called Gap. It stars Freen and Becky, these two actors. The whole premise is that they're from two very different worlds, a decent age gap. One of them's upper class, royalty, you know, the whole thing. There's a gap between them. Can they overcome the gap? Thailand has always had a lot of BLs. They've been definitely known for that, and I think that also stems from just Thai culture in general. According to the research I've done, Thai is really welcoming, really strong LGBTQ plus rights. It's kind of ironic. The culture in general isn't actually that accepting. It's still sort of looked down on because they had so many BLs. It's become more normalized, but there's been a lot more same-sex representation when it comes to males than females. I think that was fine for just breaking into that space, figuring out what could be done and what would be accepted. But as time has gone on, the only really GL representation is side couples in a BL series. That's actually where Freen and Becky first kind of debuted together. And then Idol Factory, they produced Gap. You can't really talk about Thai GLs without talking about Gap because it was kind of like the first one, and it did really, really well. Like, it was literally a turning point because it did so well. It opened so many opportunities for lesbian representation within the Thai drama space. It opened a lot more doors for GLs in general, and it maybe opened the eyes to producers to be like, wow, there is totally an audience here. This is super recent. Gap was made in 2022, not that long ago. It did so well that there have been so many more GLs made since then. There was, I think, around 30 made this year. I bet there's gonna be a lot more made next year. Some of the ones that I highlighted, Gap, of course, The Loyal Pin, Secret of Us, Affair 23.5, but there's so many. There's so many. One other thing that I think is interesting is that Freen and Becky are doing another show that's currently airing called The Loyal Pin. Idol Factory, who they're contracted with, collaborated with the Ministry of Commerce, which essentially means that the Thai government is helping to fund the creation of GLs, which one is huge in terms of like representation, and two, funding is incredibly important, especially in the filmmaking space, because you can't really focus on art if you have to really worry about money. So the Thai government wants to push out Thai culture, and that's part of the reason why they're funding this show. But that is huge. I mean, that stands for so much, that says so much. I'd like to talk about specific couples. It's always very interesting when they have the same two actors, different roles and different things, because their chemistry is that good and you associate the actor with those things. Freen and Becky will forever be associated with each other. That's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it can be really good branding wise. The Loyal Pin is getting a lot of free marketing just because it's Freen and Becky. They're doing this also with one of my favorites, Ling Orm. They acted in The Secret of Us. It's currently my favorite GL. I thought it was really freaking good. And they're making another one called Only You, that Ling and Orm acting in together. It's very interesting because it's almost like instead of making these roles and then thinking who'd be good in them, it's almost like they're taking these actors who are really prominent in the space and they're making roles for them. I'm not going to say one of those is better than the other. I think it's just different techniques to make really good art because it's smart in terms of marketing and it's really smart in terms of like your character can really help you sell a character if you already know there's a character that is popular and has a huge audience. But I think the GL space in general, it's definitely brand new, which is sort of why you're seeing a lot of common tropes, which again, I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. I don't think it was a bad thing that there were so many BLs, because I think when you're first breaking into a space, you just have to make something and then you can worry about really expanding and making something new and beautiful. But I think you just have to plant a root first. The most common trope is parental disapproval, for lack of a better term. Mom, I really love this girl. Bro, no, that's not chill. It's a heartbreak. And then you get your parental or familial figure realize that it's okay. And I honestly think that's a really great message to put out into the world right now. Shows like this can be really influential. LGBTQ already gets that precedence that there are some against it. It's easier to root for a love story that already has something against it. So forbidden love trope is a reason they do really well, because when there's something already against it, that you as a viewer are like, that obstacle should so easily be removed. Enemies to lovers, usually the obstacle is a miscommunication. As a viewer, you're like, just communicate. Or forbidden love, there's an obstacle and you as a viewer are like, that shouldn't keep them from being together. Is really engaging and it gives you something to root for. And it's also really interesting to see how like different cultures cultures also really influence each other within the entertainment industry. Ayaka is in Love with Hiroko is a drama really similar to Gap. It's a Japanese drama, and I believe that one's doing really well. So you might see a lot more of this type of thing in Japan as well. The celebrity couples are getting so much traction that it's basically free marketing, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next couple years. There are so many that came out just after Gap. They're doing really well. I think there's a ton of GLs that are doing really well because there's been so many shows that have been brought out. A lot of people have already been exposed to Asian culture in one way or another. I think that also goes with LGBTQ plus content, so they're a lot more open to watching this sort of content. Thai culture is really beautiful and it has a lot of history, and so I think we're definitely going to see more historical dramas. The Loyal Pin is the only one I've seen currently that's doing something that's not modern, just because it's new. There's not a whole lot of this content out yet. There's a big space to play in right now, so it'll be fun to see kind of where it goes and how it does with audiences. Yeah, if you have any recommendations for me, I am so down to watch more Thai GLs. I really enjoy